Hey everybody, welcome back to Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, tonight I am here with Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. This is going to be the first part in a short series I'm going to do on this game. A game that I think is one of the very best modern dungeon crawls. I don't really know how to define the term modern. I think it would be beneficial to look at the games in this genre and kind of put them into eras. Right now I'm kind of thinking, post-Descent 2nd edition. And I do want to kind of go back and look at all of these games and put them in different eras, maybe defined by their defining game or something like that. However, that's beside the point. Warhammer Quest Silver Tower is a super awesome game. It is a masterclass in presentation. I'm trying to think of a good word to describe. I don't think presentation quite describes the idea that I am kind of focusing on recently, but the term onboarding comes to mind, but that's so corporate sounding, and there's got to be, I'm trying to think of a phrase to describe this idea of games that invite the player into their world with kind of an ease of play, and games that are able to create excitement from the moment you open the box to the moment you get them on the table to the moment you start playing them. They create excitement and they entice the players to play the game just simply by reading the books or the documentation or looking at the game. And Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, like I said, it is an absolute masterclass in its ability to do that. So when the game was first announced and when it came out, there was kind of some disappointment, I think, among the fans of dungeon crawls, because when people heard that Warhammer Quest was coming back into print, some people thought it was just going to be like a reprint of the original, and Silver Tower is definitely not a reprint. It is a brand new game. It uses some of the ideas from the original Warhammer Quest, mainly in how you explore the dungeon. But it uses a whole brand new kind of dice mechanism for action selection. It's not so much about building up your characters like a role-playing game. It is far more of a board game, whereas the original was kind of like straddling that line between a board game and an RPG. And the original game was this kind of like vast, sprawling, epic game where all of the tiles and the different settlements that you were using to play the game, all of those things represented dozens and dozens of different locations. And you kind of had to use your imagination to determine where they were in the old world set, the geographic location of one or the other, traveling from one to the other. And you would create this whole world that was a little on the generic side. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it wasn't like you weren't going into specific places. Warhammer Quest Silver Tower is the antithesis of that. This is a super narrowly focused game in which your entire quest takes place within the Silver Tower. This is a location that has been written about and it has been developed, and you're in this bespoke location that you never really leave for your entire game. And a game a campaign can typically last, I think, between like 8 and 10 sessions, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going into the Silver Tower to try to find fragments of this amulet before you decide to face the final boss, and that is the Gaunt Summoner here. And so because it's so focused, it's able to tell a super interesting, well-written story. And because the game is relatively short, I think it really does encourage multiple plays through the entire campaign with multiple different groups, different parties, different characters. And you can mix and match your characters to form your party. And with with one of the expansions, one of the 2 expansions that did come out for this game, you can use different adversaries, different monsters. So it is a very different game than the original Warhammer Quest. But I do want to talk about how, in this first part, how the game how it introduces the players to the game. And kind of the first way it does that is through the 2 main books. And you have this guidebook which says read this first, and then you have your adventure book. And first of all, the books are absolutely gorgeous. Nice thick covers, great art, high quality paper, glossy. This is just it is a prototypical, well produced Games Workshop rulebook. When you open up the book, you're immediately greeted with this amazing diorama here of all the minis in the game, painted expertly, of course. Now, I know some people don't like the Age of Sigmar sculpts. I happen to not be one of them. I think they are incredible. They are so detailed. They are so much fun to paint. Because of their detail, they're actually pretty easy to paint because everything is really easy to pick up with a brush. But the first thing when you open this up is you are greeted with a nice little synopsis here of the story about what's going to happen, and then and then it goes into it's talking to you as the player. It says your quest will take you through 8 trials, during which you will explore twisting pathways in the hope of finding the trial's grand chamber. The grand chamber is basically the it's the final quest room. It's the objective room from Warhammer Quest. And so you're going to be searching for the Grand Chamber, where you will have the chance to claim a fragment of a powerful amulet. Should you amass enough fragments, you will be able to summon the tower's demonic master and force a final confrontation. This book will guide you through your first trial, one step at a time. Gather your fellow players and prepare to enter the Silver Tower. That's such a great introduction to the game. I really like that. And then you flip the page over and you're again greeted with this amazing piece of art here. So evocative, just makes me want to just dive headfirst into this world. And you have a nice tiny little short narrative here, The Legends of the Silver Tower. Gather now about the fire, huddle close to its light, for this is a dark and terrible tale, a tale of the Silver Tower. A labyrinth the Silver Tower was, an impossible fastness of timeless evil. It was a crystalline web, an insanely complex machine, a puzzle fortress beyond the scope of mortal minds. It was the lair of the gaunt summoner. Within its ever-shifting pathways, that sorcerous demon ruled with absolute power. Nothing brought the gaunt summoner greater pleasure than to ensnare mortal champions within his web. He delighted in their playing of twisted games, pitting his captive against the tides of fate and the ingenuity of his trials. Some of his victims were plucked from the ether, snatched while walking the waves between the realms. Others came to the Silver Tower on their own free will, finding their way into its chill shadows and glittering mists by way of dark rituals or dire pacts. Whether trapped, coerced, or lured into the Silver Tower, there was but one way the champions could leave. They would need to fight their way through fiendish trials, monstrous denizens, and deadly traps to seize the fragments of the summoner's true name. Only with the power of these eldritch syllables could the demon be defeated. The victorious champions could either strike their tormentor down, or else demand him a mighty boon. Few were the gifts beyond a gaunt summoner's power to bestow, from endless wealth and power to the regard of the gods and the deepest secrets of reality itself. Whatever their choices, those who returned alive from the Silver Tower were never the same, and fate rested heavy upon them forevermore. Man, nobody writes fluff text like Games Workshop does. So good. That just, just reading that, I think I want to play this game right now. And then the brilliance of this book is just how it introduces the game to you. So this says, the following pages teach you how to play Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. By carrying out each step as it is described, you can begin your first trial without having to read all of the rules first. Of course, some concepts and components may not be explained straight away, but have faith, all will be revealed in time. And then you come over here and you get to this nice setting up example pages where it shows the components that you're going to use. It tells you all of the steps you're going to need and what components are used in those steps to set up. And then finally you get to the adventure book, and that tells you to go ahead and open up the adventure book to a certain page to begin reading. It says the player with the adventure book reads starting a trial on the first page out loud. Before you return here, your trial will have begun. So then you go to the adventure book and you read starting a trial. So you read this nice little fluff text there. And then you read this. Read this passage after you have set up your heroes on the Ingress Chamber. So the Ingress Chamber is like the first, this is going to be the first tile in every quest that you take. And you are going to set your heroes up on there. So these are the two heroes that I've chosen to play. We have the Lord Relictor. This is probably my favorite mini I've ever painted. Like I've said before, I really like painting. And I'm okay at it. It just takes me forever. I mean, this guy probably took me like 12 hours to paint. So that's why I don't paint that often. When I'm faced with time to either play a game, make a video, or paint, or maybe learn a game, painting is the last priority. And I'm also using the Slaughter Priest here. So the cool thing about this game is it has a narrative reason why these kind of like very different, disparate heroes or anti-heroes, villains would be working together, because they've all been summoned or captured or come to the Silver Tower for their own reasons. So you can mix and match and make these like just wild parties. But so you read this little paragraph here, and then it tells you to, if this is your first time playing, then you're going to set up the Ingress Chamber. And then if this is your first trial, you read the legend begins on the next page. And then you're like, bam, right here with this just amazing piece of art. This is how you introduce a player to your world right here. Look at that. That is, the colors are just so bright. I love this world so much. And then you read another little narrative passage here. And then finally, for setup, you turn to passage 89. So this adventure book has a number of random encounters that you will be rolling D66 for. So kind of like rolling a D100 you roll. So like that would be 52. So then you would read passage 52. And then it also has passages that coincide with the different chambers you're going to be exploring and the different trials and the different kind of mini games. One thing this game does so well is it incorporates all kinds of different mini games. You have like dice stacking for kind of like dexterity mini games. There's even a game of charades in here. And while that sounds weird to have a game of charades within a dungeon crawl, it really does work in the narrative. But the first trial you're going to go on is going to be detailed on passage 89. And that says, the energies of the portal surged around the champions and propelled them down a twisting tunnel of light. Moments later, they stumbled from the portal's exit and into a strange new chamber. Regaining their composure, the champions squared their shoulders and steeled themselves against the dangers to come. The first trial within the Silver Tower had begun. So before you've even started to crunch through the rules and the mechanisms, this game has introduced you to like 3 or 4 passages of text, of narrative, of things that are enticing, things that are tickling your imagination just to get you into the game. That is, oh God, that is so awesome. I don't think there's another game that does this better than Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. Because it actually, like, so like right now, I haven't even really started the rulebook yet as a new player, and I'm like totally jonesing to get to that rulebook so I can get started on this first trial. And a lot of times you open up a rule book and you think, oh man, I need to get through this rule book just so I can play the game. But this incorporates learning the game into the game. I just thought of a game that I think does that well also, and that is this War of Mine, which is another kind of misunderstood and often maligned game by players who do want that old kind of experience of just digesting the rules and then playing. But so this game was designed by James M. Hewitt, who did Hellboy. And I bring that up because this it is similar in the way that you construct some of the card decks that you're going to be going through. So when you're setting up your trials, the initial setup paragraph will tell you which symbols you're going to be looking for. So in this instance, we're going to be creating our dungeon deck using these symbols. So that is kind of like Hellboy in the way it sets up its event decks. And so then you're going to be looking through this stack of dungeon cards, which there are about 40. And these are super cool because each tile has like a little narrative, or it tells you the encounter table you're going to be working from. And it also will tell you to read a certain narrative passage, or it'll have some little cool thing for you to do. And each one is different. Some of them will be used in multiple trials. So like for instance, this trial here, the Mysterious Vortex, will be used in at least in 3 different trials, whereas this one, A Merry Chase, is only going to be used in that trial. And so you get a lot of use out of these cards. And again, narratively, it makes sense because the Silver Tower is this constantly changing, morphing contraption. You know, it's like this mechanical, mystical, arcane thing that it's constantly changing shape. And so you're going to be running into some of the same areas over and over again. But anyways, you're going to take your trial cards for including this symbol. You're going to put them in a certain order, you know, mix your grand chamber, your objective room into the bottom and place the others on top. And then you're going to go back to the rule book and walk through a turn and start playing the game while you are learning. And so we have this set up here. I have my first group of enemies already set up because I was kind of playing earlier. And this is the first passage that I drew, is the Whirligig Passage. So this is going to be used in 3 different trials. And this says, the floor moved constantly in this place, clicking and whirring as it interlocked and spun apart in ever-changing configurations of crescent tiles and seamlessly meshing cogworks. So the tile art in this game is absolutely incredible. It is beautiful. It's bold. I love it. So much cool art, and a lot of the art actually does have meaning in the game. So on this one, you have to get through like these like crazy teeth. This one is just kind of like a straight up squares to progress through. But you're going to find that some of the squares are offset, which messes with adjacency a little bit. So you do kind of have to think about positioning on these tiles. And these little portals here will represent where enemies will come from when they have reinforcements. But yeah, a lot of the tiles are really neat. We have some of the smaller tiles or bigger ones. I greatly enjoy the art on these. You don't get this game. This game is so psychedelic. It looks so bright and colorful on the table. That was one of the things that originally drew me to it. So many times these games, dungeon crawls, are kind of like dreary and, you know, I guess dreary brown, lots of browns. But this is just like, it looks like some like crazy psychedelic van art from the 70s. And I love that so much. That is a great tile right there. It almost looks like an old Gary Chalk's son there. But yeah, so there's a good example of some of the tiles you're going to get. And you get a lot of them. I think you get like 20, and they're all double-sided. So that's like 40 different locations that you're going to be exploring on your quest for the amulet. But you go to the first part of the book here, and it very nicely walks you through the first round, Tells you what to do, tells you all the dice, how to set things up. The characters are pretty simple. So you have a movement value, that's how many spaces they can move if they take a move action. You have your agility, that's what they need to escape being pinned or being captured by monsters. You have a save value, that's what you have to roll to prevent a hit from happening. And then each time you play, or each one of your turns, you're going to roll 4 dice, your 4 hero dice, and you're going to place those in these spots, any spot that's not covered up by a wound. As you get wounded, you will get to roll fewer dice. And then you can take actions based on your dice roll and your die rolls. So you can use your Relic Hammer. You need to spend a 1+ value. You can use your Lightning Storm. You need to spend a 3+ value. And then that tells you if it's a melee range, which is combat, or missile, which is ranged, or area, which affects the entire tile. It tells you what you need to roll to hit. So if you wanted to use your Relic Hammer, you would spend a 1+ die, so you can just spend that, and then you would roll it. To hit, you have to get a 3 up. And so I rolled a 1, I missed that. But if I rolled a 3 or higher, I would do 1 damage. And this one we do hit on a 4 up and do D3 damage. And then you also have a couple different abilities here. You have a trait and you have renown. You have a way to gain experience. Every time you kill a monster, you're going to gain experience, and you're also going to gain experience if you do something special on the card. We will go over all of the hero cards in a different video, in one of the upcoming videos in this series. And as you gain experience, you're going to be able to gain different skills. So this is one area where I think the game is a little lacking, and that is the number of different skills and treasure. Treasure, you can search for treasure and you can gain skills. Right now, I have my skill cards from Silver Tower and Shadows over Hammerhall mixed together. The games are completely compatible in this regard, so this really gets my skill deck up to a nice, respectable amount. If you weren't using the skills from Shadows over Hammerhall, you'd only have about 20 different skills to earn throughout your adventure. And so that is one area where I really think the game is lacking. Same as with treasures, I have mixed the 2 treasure decks together. We have the Hammerhall treasures and then the Silver Tower treasures. So like Blackstone Fortress, a lot of the treasures are actually one-use items, which some people complained about that, but there's enough variety and there's a few that you can keep that I think the treasures are at least interesting. You're kind of always cycling through them. You're not finding like one great sword and keeping it for the rest of the adventure. The skills, however, you do get to keep a certain number depending on how many trials you've gone through, how many fragments of the amulet you found. And the skills will usually give you some kind of additional action that you can take. Like this one, for instance, you can do a leap action, spinning a 2+ die, and then you could get to do something else. And so the skills are what really kind of develop your character. But again, this game isn't really about character development. This game is about experiencing the story of the Silver Tower. Warhammer Quest is very much like Shadows of Brimstone. It's very much about the story you create in your head while developing your character. Silver Tower is less focused on the characters as the driving force of the narrative and is more focused on this adventure book and working through the story that is written. And so that's one of the ways it's quite a bit different. But yep, it's going to talk to you through your first round, so you're going to know exactly what to do on your hero phase, on the destiny phase, on your hero's turn. It's going to tell you all the actions you can take with examples. Super well laid out and clear. The writing in the rulebook is excellent. Everything is precise. It's going to tell you exactly how you can move, how you can recuperate and heal, what your destiny dice are used for. So at the beginning of every turn or every phase, you're going to roll 5 destiny dice. Any of them that are different, you're going to keep. And these will become dice that that any hero can use on their turn. Any of them that are doubles, you're going to look at the back of the book here, and depending on what the double is, different things are going to happen. So if you roll double 1s or double 6s, you're going to have to roll and have a random encounter in the adventure book. And like I said, there are all kinds of different random encounters. If you roll fickle fate. If you roll a certain combination, different things are going to happen. If you roll double 2s, double 4s, double 5s, or double 3s, these little, what are they called? Familiars are going to come out, and they're going to mess with the game in certain ways. So then you're going to get to attacking, picking targets, your attack rolls, and how you do that. And then you get to the adversary phase, which is the monsters. And then it tells you what to do as you progress through the game. Further rules that you're going to need. And then this page here has a spattering of different rules. So the actual rule book itself is only about 20 pages. But the way it eases you into the game is just excellent. It's so well done. And then at the end of this rule book, you get a nice lore section with all the main characters that come with this game. There are 6 heroes. You get a little write-up on the enemies, and then you get all of your enemy stats, which I don't use these anymore. I use the expansion cards, which again we will go over. But yeah, so that's just a really kind of high-level overview of Silver Tower. We're going to dive into some more of the specifics in the upcoming videos in this series, but I've been wanting to do a series about this game for some time, kind of an addendum to my original Warhammer Quest series, and really show a focus on this game, because I think it is one that doesn't enjoy the popularity that it deserves. There are hardly any major content expansions for this. You had the base game, you had a pack of adversaries that you could use in this or Shadows of Hammerhall, and then you also had a pack of heroes, and that was basically it. There was no like additional content as far as like more quests or anything like that. I really wish they would have given the attention that they are giving now to Blackstone Fortress to Silver Tower, because I like this game more. It's a little more simple and easier to play, especially solo. But as it stands, this game as a singular focused narrative experience is one of the best I have ever had. I would rank this game very high. It would probably enter into my top 10 dungeon crawls of all time. A few drawbacks, which we will talk about as the series progresses. Like I said, I already mentioned a couple. The sparse number of skills and treasures available. If you do get the app, the My Hero app, which is an app that contains a whole bunch of heroes, you can actually buy digital decks of skills and treasures that contain about 15 more of each. I don't know why they never released those physically. I really wish they would have. But anyway, so yeah, that was. I hope you enjoyed this first part of Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, and stay tuned for more. I think next time we'll probably take a look through the hero cards and the adversary cards, and maybe play after that one. We'll do probably a couple turns. Maybe I'll play through the entire first quest, and you can kind of get a sense of how the game plays. And we'll kind of look at some of the minis that I've painted, because I have painted quite a few of the heroes. So anyways, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.